This is Redblacks football on TSN 1200. The Ogilvy Subaru postgame show starts right now.
You can start to line them up right now at 1:08 a.m. Eastern. The calls, the emails, the texts, and the tweets after a 26-14 BC victory over the Ottawa Redblacks. Lee Versage, James Duke Ellingson, here with you on the Ogilvy Super Postgame Show. We're going to hear from Rick Campbell and some of the other players momentarily, but James Duke Ellingson, this is why you get the big bucks. Because you are a guy that has played on teams as bad as the Ottawa Redblacks have been for the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. What is going on with this team?
Well, if you can't block, if you lose the battle up front in football, you're going to lose. And if you turn the ball over, you're going to lose. Tonight, Ottawa, really, both of those things happened. 6 sacks, including the final play of the game for good measure. And Trevor Harris was chased all night long. So they can't block, turn the ball over. You don't win games when you have 6 sacks and 3 turnovers and a blocked punt early in the game. They're just not playing well enough to win, frankly. And so the question always comes back to, are they not good enough? Is it scheme? Teams caught up to them? Self-scouting? All those kinds of things. But, hey, they're 6-5. They got to fly all the way back across the country and then turn around and go into the Lions' Den in Saskatchewan. No pun intended there. And this team could very quickly be staring at 6-6. They got to figure it out, but it starts with the offensive line.
All right, until we get Rick Campbell, we're going to get right to the phone line. 750-1200, star 1200 on Bell Mobility, 1-877-670-1200, toll-free long distance. You are lined up right now. Andrew, Mike, and Keith, we're going to get to all of you here as quickly as we can before some of the players join us. Andrew, welcome to the program. Good morning. How are you?
Not bad yourself, guys.
Other than sitting through that last 3 hours, it was pretty good before that.
So the 3 best performances from Ottawa tonight were Richie Leone, the way he's been all season, Lewis Ward, and John Gott. John Gott, because he wasn't on the field, and it just showed how much they need him on the field, because apparently nobody else can block up the middle. I saw sack after sack of going right between guard and center. I don't know if it's Matthias. I don't know if it's one of the guards. I don't know if it's communication. But the fact is, there's nobody up the middle that can block.
Andrew, sorry to cut you up. We're going to get right back to you, I promise here, and thanks for hanging with us. We'll get to some of your points here in a minute, but we do have head coach Rick Campbell, who is with us now. Coach, try and put this one into words. All right, we'll try and...
Hello? A little technical difficulty. I thought maybe he didn't want to put it into words. That's why he was avoiding the question.
Well, no, maybe that was his answer.
Or that he couldn't, yeah.
Just, there are no words.
Yeah.
So we'll try and get that snafu fixed here in just a second. Andrew, Mike, and Keith, we'll get to your phone calls as well. But Duke, you were telling me some of the numbers here just beforehand, and you mentioned a bunch of numbers to me, and it was scary.
Yeah, it's all the things that you look at a stat page and you say that team didn't win, and you give up 6 sacks, and I don't know how many pressures tonight, Lee, and how many times Trevor Harris either got kind of hit as he tried to throw, had to move out of the pocket and throw it away. The penalties, the blocked punt, the 3 interceptions. And we should talk a little bit about, and it's unfortunate that it happened to the kid that was starting his first game, but when they did have a chance to stop BC at the end, when it was still 19-14, a 1-score game, they did get the second down stop. They got the penalty for illegal contact, extended the drive, and BC ended up going down and scoring. So again, all the things that happen to teams when you're not playing well, and the key elements of the game, you got to protect the quarterback. You can't turn it over. You can't give up block punts, which was a huge part of the game. I mean, early on, you're on the road, you're trying to establish some kind of confidence, and I think it was your second drive, you get the punt blocked, and BC goes down and scores a touchdown.
All right, we're going to go back to BC Place. AJ Jackiebeck is going to be the one now talking to head coach Rick Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. And Coach, just your thoughts on this one here tonight. Tough one in BC.
Yeah, it's disappointing. We're not playing our best football right now. We have a lot of people giving good effort and all that, but that's not the name of the game. We need to make sure we do some basic stuff well and take care of the football. We can't turn it over. and you got to keep the penalties down. And too many good coaches, too many players to not be playing better football. So we're going to keep working at this.
I think defense and special teams, it's hard to blame them for this one, much like the game last week in Montreal. What is going on from your standpoint on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, we're going to look at it. I'm not going to point any fingers or anything tonight. We'll look at it, but obviously it's got to be better. We got a lot of good players on that side of the ball, and we're just not finding a rhythm right now, and we need to get that fixed.
Do you consider a move where you bring back a guy like a John Gott, given his experience on the O-line?
We'll look at everything. We'll make sure we look at everything, and also try to make sure we're smart enough to fix the things that need fixing, and whether that's John Gott or whatever it is, we're going to be open to everything, but we just want to work to get better.
Why the decision at halftime? Trevor Harris was ineffective. He threw some bad passes in the first half, but you started the second half with Dominic Davis. Just take us through your thought process on that.
I just wanted a reset. My plan was to put Trevor back in. I just wanted him to see the game from the sideline and kind of just reset our brains and kind of get out of the funk and get back. And we showed signs of life, but too little too late.
Coach, appreciate the time. Thanks for the time here tonight.
Thank you.
That's Rick Campbell, guys.
All right, thanks very much. We're going to go right back to the phone lines. And Andrew, thanks for waiting. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. So, I was saying the John Gott thing seems like an obvious move they got to make. A lot of the personnel decisions I just have a lot of questions with. J.C. Beaulieu is maybe a pretty good fullback and tight end, but I don't know why they're splitting him out as a wide receiver. There's got to be a wide receiver who can go in. Numerous times I saw him split out wide. If there isn't a receiver that can go in, maybe you look at your backup running back, Brendan Galanders, but your big fullback is not the guy I want split out 40 yards down, like 40 yards across the field, going deep. He's just not the right personnel decision. And then they seem to want to run the ball every time it's first down. You get a first down, you run the ball on first down. I'm sure BC figured it out because everybody else in the league's figured it out, and most people watching on TV have figured it out. And I just don't understand what the game plan is with Jamie Elizondo, what he's calling. We don't need to run the ball just because it's first down. It's just getting so plain, so obvious. I'm not surprised it's not working. And Coach is right. Everything's going wrong because nothing's working, and they're doing the same thing over and over again.
Couldn't agree with you more, Andrew. I really appreciate you staying up with us tonight.
Have a good night, guys.
All right, let's go back to BC, and AJ Jackieback is standing by with linebacker Kevin Brown.
Thanks, Lee. Kevin, tough one here tonight in Vancouver. How did it play out from your standpoint?
We didn't finish when we needed to. We had to make a stop. We had them, and it just didn't work out for us.
What happened down the stretch? Because BC struggled to move the ball all night long. They got 16 points off of turnovers. What happened on those last couple of drives?
We just didn't execute. That was all that happened.
And in terms of the quarterback switch, Jonathan Jennings, when you get a switch like that in a game, how does that change things up from your standpoint?
It doesn't change anything. We still do what we do. We just didn't execute when we needed to.
How frustrating is this to come off a game where you play so well in Winnipeg and you don't have a great performance against Montreal? How frustrating is it that you can't follow up that loss with a better performance here tonight?
It's very frustrating, but good thing about football is, you live to see another day and play another down, and we have another opportunity next week. But this one stings, but we'll learn from it, and we'll take it into the next game.
Kevin, appreciate the time. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
That's Kevin Brown, guys.
All right, thanks, AJ. We'll take a quick break. I know Mike and Keith, you're holding on. 750-1200, star 1200 on Bell Mobility. We're also going to go back live to the locker room after a 26-14 victory for the BC Lions. Ottawa has lost to the last place team in the East and the last place team in the West in the last two games. That is not good. And they fall to 6-5. Back with more of the Ogilvy Super Postgame Show on TSN 1200.
The TSN 1200 Ogilvy Subaru Postgame Show continues. Now let's go live to the locker room for P38 Energy.
26-14, the BC Lions beat the Ottawa Redblacks. And before we go back to the phone lines here, Mike and Keith, we'll get to you here. Duke, we have just a second. Live to the Locker Room will continue. Expecting to hear from Trevor Harris and Greg Ellingson. I'm not trying to be smart. Sometimes I do try and be smart, and it does not work out. I'm not trying to be smart. If I know and you know and most people just sitting back on their couches or in the stands know, right now, if you rush Ottawa, you are going to win the game. How does Ottawa not know the answer to that question? Because it seems so simple, and I know the answer is not simple, but it's like if you bring more than Ottawa has in to block, they have no idea what to do when they are blitzed, and they cannot get receivers open. They don't have a hot read. They don't have a guy that can get deep and make people honest, and that's how you beat Ottawa.
No, you're right. I know we have to go back to the locker room, but I think one thing I want to do is exonerate a little bit the offensive line, because you brought up the really important point there is they're bringing more than Ottawa has to block. So 5 guys can't block 7, and we can't blame the offensive line for not being able to block 7.
Stop
Now it's on the rest of the offense to figure out a way to handle the extra bodies, whether it's additional blockers or, to your point, is it hot reads, getting guys open, however. So
I know
not blaming the offensive line entirely.
No, except when they rushed 3 and got this exact same pressure with other guys. Right. I have no idea what's going on with it, but let's go back live to the locker room. AJ Jackie standing by with receiver Greg Ellingson.
Greg, just your thoughts on this one here tonight. Another tough one, two losses in a row as you drop this one in BC.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. First half was a bit of a joke. I mean, we didn't move the ball. We didn't have any success. It was bad. I mean, we came out kind of flat, and we can't do that. It's just poor performance.
What happened in particular in that first half that made you guys struggle so much?
Oh, man. I mean, if I knew that, then we'd win every game. But, we just got to, make the plays as they present themselves. We got to move the ball down the field. It's pretty simple to say. It's another thing to go out there and do it and execute. And, the defensive VC did a great job, matching up with us and, stopping our offense today.
Can you explain just the wild inconsistency of this unit? Because, there have been a couple of games. You put up 40 against Saskatchewan. That might be a top 2 defense in the league. Winnipeg, team that, again, is one of the better defenses in the league. You put up 44. How does it go? It's almost like there's no middle ground with what you see from the offense.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part is, there's so many factors that go into having a successful offense and really having a complete day and putting up those kind of points. I mean, it's everything. It's running the ball. It's the protection. It's receivers making plays. It's making the right reads. It's sustaining those drives. Right play calls. It's everything. That makes the team click like that. And when you're not doing those things, then you kind of have that sour taste in the feeling like you have today, especially that first half. How poor it seemed, and we came out second half, moved the ball a little bit better, but we can't have a half of football and expect to win. We have to play a complete game, and just have to learn from that going forward and make sure that we, I think the main thing is the energy on the field, going on the field and really extending those drives and making sure we make the plays to move the ball down the field the way we need to.
How do you bounce back, and especially how do you ensure that you don't lose confidence as a unit as well?
I mean, it's a game of football. If it was easy and every game was easy, everybody would do it, right? A bunch of guys would be on the field playing every week, and no one really think a second thought about it and try to critique the people that are out there. But we got to critique ourselves. We got to make the corrections. Make sure that we're better. As a receiver core, as an offense. When they're bringing pressure, make sure we make those hot reads and make sure we're getting open, and we know who the receiver is that needs to be hot on those plays and those are the simple things that you can say that you need to do, but it's another thing going out there and doing those things and making sure that we can, make those opportunities, capitalize when they bring pressure and hitting a hot and, making one guy miss and, making that a touchdown. Those are the differences between what you see today and, putting up 40-plus points.
Greg, thanks for this. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
That's Greg Ellingson, guys.
All right, thanks very much, AJ. Some good stuff there from Greg Ellingson. He toes the line pretty good from not throwing his team under the bus, but at least saying something. First half was a joke, and he's a guy that I've gotten to know pretty well. You can hear him seething underneath. Like, you want to talk about guys that care? That guy cares. And that guy will be trying to hold other guys accountable, and he's not going to throw them under the bus, but he will be a guy that will be talking to guys later.
Right. No, for sure. And you love to hear that, and you love to know that he cares as much as he does. As he was talking, I was just scratching out a couple of thoughts about the offense and the AJ put it best, like the highs and the lows, no middle ground. 5 games this year, they have scored either no touchdowns or 1 touchdown. And one of those games was that Calgary game in Calgary where the late garbage time touchdown, that was just a throw.
Dominique Davis.
Right.
Yeah.
120 minutes of football in the last 2 weeks, 1 touchdown. You can't win like that in the league. You can't win games scoring 1 touchdown, scoring no touchdowns, although they did it against Hamilton. But it's amazing how they can go from looking almost unstoppable 2-3 weeks in a row, and then all of a sudden 1 touchdown in 120 minutes against, as you pointed out, the 2 last place teams in the league.
It's ridiculous, really. I mean, this team, if they thought they were better than this, and people thought that this is a blip, it's not a blip. This team, and I know that they've been pretty good. I disagree with AJ a little bit. It was the special teams that gave up a huge punt block that started all of this tonight. And they did it twice. They did a holding penalty that would have got blocked, and then when they ran it the second time, it did get blocked, and it was an easy block. Can't happen. Go to the phone lines. Mike, thanks for waiting. Mike, how are you?
Good morning, guys. Duke was right when he said earlier it's about the offensive line. I remember a couple of years ago about Lozon Seguin. I see no improvement in this guy from when he was a rookie. I was watching him in the third and fourth quarter. His technique is brutal. His feet are awful. He is so slow. I mean, those guys, I don't know if they even worked up a sweat, Lemon and Willis. They were beating him like a rented mule. I mean, it was terrible. And Nolan McMillan, I liked him in the first year he played. I haven't seen much out of him outside of the fact that he gets hurt a ton. They got big problems on offense. They got big problems because for two weeks in a row, we're playing, as you mentioned, the worst team in the league, and their defensive backs are running our patterns.
Mm-hmm.
They're beating our guys to the ball. They're running our routes. So something's got to be wrong. Something's tipping them off. And I know the last time I called you, and it was after a brutal game, and I think I mentioned then, where are the screens? Where's the variety to help the offensive line out, getting the ball out of Trevor Harris's hand quickly? If they're going to keep Trevor Harris, if he's going to be their quarterback, he can't move. We know that. He can't run. He has very limited mobility. Well, you better stock up that offensive line, because if not, this is going to continue. And I mean, God forbid next week against Saskatchewan. They're going to, it's going to be awful.
Yeah.
And Harris is going to get hurt.
Well,
I think Mike's right. I worry if things play out the way on paper you think they will, Saskatchewan's going to be like a den of lions, just literally frothing at the mouth.
And I said to you, Duke, on the break, I'm not a big Chris Jones fan, but we know what Chris Jones' defense does. They blitz, and then they blitz more, and then they blitz more. And that is the way you beat Ottawa right now. So what do you think Chris Jones is going to do next week? Right, Mike?
It's terrible. What I'm seeing against supposedly the 2 worst teams in the league, it's just something's tipping them off. It has to be.
Well,
it's either on film, they're picking up something, because they're running, for the most part, their receivers, their DBs are running our routes.
Well, one thing, Mike, one thing to remember, and it all ties together exactly what you're saying, is when the defensive backfield knows that they're getting pressure and they know that they can, literally the quarterback is not going to have time to set his feet. They can squat on all the routes and they can jump things, and they don't have to worry about double moves. They don't have to worry about getting beat because they know the quarterback doesn't have time for a 7-step drop.
There's no threat anyway.
Right? And then you've got the other side of it, which is that for the most part, and you looked at it tonight, how many times did you really see Ottawa receivers running wide open? Very little. They weren't getting much separation last week, and they weren't getting much separation this week.
Well, to be honest with you, Duke, I didn't notice a heck of a lot of effort. I'll be honest with you, particularly in the first half. I didn't notice a heck of a lot of effort, no second effort from any of the Ottawa receivers, and that includes Greg Ellingson.
And Lee pointed out on the second half interception, I think it was the Dominic Davis interception that he threw.
Yes.
Deontay Spencer stopped. You saw him stop and not even attempt to turn. And
I am so glad you brought that up, because I noticed that. I was going to bring it up, and I was furious about that. To be honest with you, they ran back. And I don't know how many tackles that DB ran through.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Mike, I appreciate the call. We got to go back live to the locker room. So thanks very much for staying up with us.
Okay.
And don't mean to cut you short, Mike, but we do go back and wrap up live from the locker room as A.J. Jackiebeck is standing by with the starting quarterback, Trevor Harris.
Thanks, Lee. And Trevor, how do you explain this one tonight here in BC?
It's one of those ones we'll have to wait and see on film, but obviously insanely disappointing, frankly pissed off. We put a lot of hard work into this and we didn't get it done. I've flat out got to be better in the first half, and I can't turn the ball over. We've just got to be better as a unit, and we've got to right the ship. And if the ship is turned downward, the guys in this locker room are the ones that I'm okay with it being turned down, at some point with. Because I feel like we have championship medal in the locker room. We have character in this locker room, and I think we're going to be just fine.
How difficult was it? I mean, it seemed all night you were facing pressure and at times running for your life.
It's just part of the game. You don't have to wait and see the film. But regardless of that, I can't put our team in tough situations by turning the ball over. And that's something that I'll rectify. And we'll watch the film. We'll get better, lick our wounds, and we've got to come back and put our hard hats on. We're going to go play in a tough place next week.
How do you explain just the inconsistency of this offense? You've had some great games and some games where it just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know that there's one thing that you could point to and say, this is the issue. It's certain defenses doing certain situations and certain schemes. Sometimes it's us not executing. Sometimes it's them making a play. Sometimes it's myself. Sometimes it's the O-line. Sometimes it's the receiver. Sometimes it's the running back. Sometimes it's everybody. And that's just something that, as a team, we have to rectify, and we have to come back, look ourselves in the mirror, look at ourselves hard, and find where we can get better, because it's not acceptable the way we're playing right now.
Rick Campbell elected to start the second half with Dominic Davis at quarterback. What was your reaction when you found that out?
I play for the Redblacks, not myself. So what they tell me to do is what I do.
And how do you bounce back? You mentioned Saskatchewan next week. They've got a very good defense. How do you bounce back against a very good Saskatchewan team?
That's a tough one. It's going to be a tough place to play, but we've got to make sure that we look at the film just as we would if we won the game. Get better from the film and see where we can improve, and put together a nice plan and take it into Sask and tee it up with them.
Trevor, thanks for this. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
All right, there's Trevor Harris as we wrap things up from Vancouver.
All right, thanks very much, AJ, for doing that. Usually we do it, but just the way the technical stuff was working, that's how technical I am. The stuff. Yeah.
There was some stuff going on.
It wasn't working.
No.
So they could only hear AJ, so AJ did the interview.
That's why we're a team.
Exactly. We're TSM. We're not the team anymore.
Small T.
Yeah, and Trevor Harris's answer there. Plays for the Redblacks. Not himself. So you could tell he wasn't very happy. But in all seriousness, Duke, taking him out of the game and then putting in a more mobile quarterback didn't seem like the worst thing in the world without even putting a ton of blame on Harris. Like, I think there's been some games where he has not been very good, and he should take most of the blame for what happened. Tonight is not one of those. I don't know how many people could have quarterbacked this team with that offensive line and lack of blocking and been very successful tonight.
No, you're right. And I would have liked personally to have seen them stick with Dominic Davis a little longer. You were okay with them pulling him out of there because he threw the interception and didn't look very comfortable. But you're asking an awful lot for a guy to go in ice cold, going into the second half with all of the struggles that offense has had. I would have liked to have seen them give him a few more series and then do something. This is where it comes back a little bit to the creativity. I mean, is there not a place for Jamie Elizondo to create 2 or 3 series of packages for Dominic Davis to use his strengths as a quarterback and get him out of the pocket, maybe run? I mean, he's going to be fresh. He's a big kid. I hate to say that they wouldn't worry as much about him getting injured, but I mean, he can take a bit more of a chance with a guy like him. So I'd like to see them use him and try to maybe give the defense a different look in the middle of the game and give Trevor Harris a little break, but also attack the defense in a much different way than you would with Trevor Harris.
Keith, Stefan, we'll get to your phone calls. So right after the break, we'll also have our Tang Jewelers Orleans Gem of the Game, and I'll ask James Duke Ellingson, when your offensive line is getting beat badly, why is it that you have a healthy veteran out of the lineup in John Gott? Not that he is the answer to everybody's problems, but do you not think that he could help right now? A line that looks like they have no clue as to what they're doing in the last 2 weeks? I'll ask James Duke Ellingson that question. When we come back, 26-14, the BC Lions defeat the Ottawa Redblacks tonight. You're listening to the Ogilvy Super Postgame Show on TSN 1200.
The TSN 1200 Ogilvy Subaru Postgame Show continues. Here's the Gem of the Game, presented by Tang Jewelers Orleans.
I think this is an opportunity for Richie Leone to pin BC deeper than he would have before. Oh, it's blocked. It's blocked by the Lions, and they take it inside the 35 to the 33. Well, I guess they made the right decision. A blocked punt for the Lions. Looks like Barnett got in there.
But he was not alone, AJ. There was pressure up the middle. Barnett certainly the one with the block, but 2 other BC Lions. Solid pressure coming from their punt return team as they put the block on here.
Call it special teams, call it the offensive line, call it not blocking very many people. Our Tang Jewelers Orleans Gem of the Game, where Ottawa took a holding penalty because they were going to have their punt blocked, and then it backed up 10 yards, and then 3 guys got through the middle, and it was blocked, and that kind of set the tone for the game. 26-14, the BC Lions beat the Ottawa Redblacks.
You do not want pressure on a punt block coming right up the middle because it's obviously the shortest distance between 2 points. If you get one blocked once in a while off the edge, guy makes a great athletic play, you can live with it. But I tell you what, as Jeff pointed out, there was 3 guys that could have sort of said, no, you block it. You want to block it? I'll take care of it, right? There were like 3 of them right in the face of Richie Leone and took it right off his foot.
Yeah, it was not good. We always appreciate when you call or text or email 750-1200, star 1200 on Bell Mobility. You want to email redblacks at tsn1200.ca. Our main man, Keith, has been holding a while here late at night, probably catching some Z's while he was on hold, listening to the interviews. But, Keith, now is your time. Good morning, Keith. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Oh, Keith, I don't even know what to say about this team anymore.
Well, first let me start off by saying this is what I set up to watch.
Yeah.
Look at the time. It's 1:43 in the morning.
Yeah.
Now, something is wrong here, and I'm going to tell you where it's wrong. It's on the offensive side of the football. This defense was hung out to dry tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've been hung out to dry in a few games, and then they've hold up their part of the bargain. It's 1 or 2 things going to happen here. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but everybody has to eat food. But, you have 5-6 days to get ready for a team. And when you line up and you run, they say you run 10 plays, and then if you see which one are 7 or 10 plays anyway, and you try to say, okay, these 4 work. What's wrong with these guys when they go out on the field? They look like they're not in the game. And somebody's going to have to take some punishment at the end of the year for this kind of business, because I tell you right now, it's Grey Cup or bust. This is not going to be it's not a good team right now, and it's still, they've been fixing this team since it come into existence. And we won the Grey Cup, yes, but the guy that make us win it is not there, okay? Because you have to learn to read defense. And I don't know if Trevor Harris can read defense. I know tonight he didn't have time. And as you said earlier on there, Lee, you rush this team, you get money. It's money when you rush this team.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have a deep threat. Guys don't realize it's blitz. You got to say hot, hot, hot. Get somebody short so you can throw the ball to him. If he has nobody to throw the ball, that's why he's throwing interceptions. Because he has nobody to throw the ball. So he throws it and says, okay, I think I see a guy there. He throw the ball, bim. It's picked. So it's on the offensive side that somebody's going to get, they did that in the second year, I think, when they came into existence. Right? Well, this guy wasn't an offensive genius, but something needs to be done. And if they don't get this thing fixed, who to tell? We might not even make the playoffs here.
Well, you hope that's not the case, but Keith, you're starting to get into a territory now where things aren't getting any easier. Saskatchewan, Edmonton, and then you don't play again. And I know that's great for rest, but you might have some teams like Hamilton, number 1, who might catch up to you this weekend. But who knows what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, but another thing, one of your callers said, and Duke, the two of you named Ellingson, and the two of you are saying the same thing here, is that they don't have nobody that can take the cover off the defense on this offense.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're talking Spencer. Spencer's only one guy. He doesn't have 4 speed. I don't care how many speed he has, but these guys can't get open. I never see they throw the ball down the rail. When they do throw it down the rail, who's catching it? They're going to snap play. So where is Spencer? Ellingson does the best he can, but Ellingson is not, is not a burner. You look at the Edmontons, you look at the Calgary. They got a guy that can take the cover off the defense. We don't have that here. And as I say, it's on the offensive side. I know they block a punt tonight. They've gone, 11 games, and they block one in one. That's normal if it happens, but very rare. But this team needs to be fixed, and it has to be fixed soon. If they go out on that, they have, Saskatchewan to play and Edmonton. Mm-hmm. And if these guys come out of this 0-4, we're in trouble. We're already in trouble. But we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because nothing is getting fixed here. We hear the same comment from all the players all the time. Well, we didn't play well. It's up on me. It's my fault. It's this, that. No. It takes film study. I hear Gavin said this not too long ago. Gavin said this. I told these guys when they come to this team, you have to do film study. I don't know how much film study. I'm not there, so I don't know. But I don't think these guys are doing their homeworks. You can go there and drop a plan and you work it. But when you go in a game and you see, okay, they're blitzing all that, you got to change that plan right away. Don't wait till the second half. Half time, you go in and say, okay, they're doing this, they're doing that, let's change it. It's too late.
Yeah.
The score could have been 34-0.
And they're not great at their second half adjustments anyway. They're not. They're one of the worst teams in the league at second half adjustments.
I hope they prove me wrong, but I tell you, if they don't win one out of the next 2 games, they're relying on Hamilton and Toronto to win the rest of the game, but they won't be walkover. These guys see the film and they say, okay, just like you said, Lee, you took a lot of stuff away tonight that, I know I listen and hear you saying this, but if you rush this team, John Gott should never be taken off the roster. I don't care what you want to tell me. I don't want you to tell me this guy, Sagan, is playing better or this one is playing better or the first one draft pick. This is a veteran guy. You need veteran guys to help you. You can't rely on Sir Vincent Rogers to anchor 5 guys. He's covering a defensive end that is fit.
Yeah.
So you need a guy like John Gott to sit beside the rookie, Mateus, and say, hey, listen, I see this. Let's do this. But anyway, I won't hold up your time, and, I stay up until this time to watch a football game because I'm a football freak, especially with Redblacks freak.
Well,
and I get eggs all the time.
Maybe
I'm glad when they win, but, they got to show improvement. And I keep saying every day when I call consistency. It's not there.
Right. And Keith, great call. Thanks for staying up with us. Always appreciate it very much. To me, he is bang on with most of what he said. I mean, they can't protect anybody. I said I'd ask you before the break, before we get to Stefan, I'll ask you right now, why is John Gott not in the lineup? Like, even if you're going down and trending downward, you do have a veteran. You do have a guy that's angry, and nobody looks mean out there. They all look like they're getting their asses handed to them, to be perfectly honest with you, and no one seems to care. It's like they just don't have that edge that we call them road graders or whatever it is. Like, at least John Gott wants to take somebody's head off when he's out there.
Yeah, and we don't know all the reasons why. We have some good guesses as to why he wasn't playing, and it wasn't probably all performance-based. I know they have wanted to get those young kids in the lineup, and that's why they drafted them all in the first round, because that was the blueprint ultimately. But I guess you have to ask yourself, is it an issue of the kids not being able to play at this level, or is it not? Is it a situation where they're not there yet? And so those are decisions when you watch film, and that's where the offensive line coach and the head coach and Marcel Desjardins have to take a close look and say, did we miss on one of these guys? I mean, ultimately, I'm not an offensive line expert by any stretch, and if I could watch film, I could see some of it. But one of the callers pointed out about Lauzon Seguin's feet getting, and if you're at the tackle position and you can't handle the speed rush because you don't have the athleticism to do it, that's a big problem, and John Gott's not going to help that. But
no,
just more of an attitude, as you said, and maybe the team needs to stop and say, maybe the experiment is we're a little too early. Maybe we've rushed some of these kids, or maybe they can't play, and that's a decision they're going to have to make. But I think you need to, as Rick Campbell talked about, look at everything, including the play calling, but maybe John Gott just coming back in, as you said, he's going to be very angry, wanting to prove something, and he does give them, even though he's undersized and even though he's struggled at times too, he gives them an edge, which they don't have right now.
Well, and how about this? You bring in John Gott, and then we're getting some texts in right now, and I don't disagree either. Tim from Orleans, Lauzon Seguin at right tackle is going to get Harris killed. This team needs to start an American at right tackle.
And you know what? I'm glad that came up again. Now, I don't know if there's an immediate solution to that piece, but you and I talked about this week when we looked at the roster, and we had the same conversation that others have brought up, is R.J. Harris, Dominique Rhymes, both on the roster. Only one is playing, obviously, at one time.
Yep.
Why? Why do they have them both? Would they not be better served to keep your quarterback alive, to enhance the offensive line with an import, and dress that extra Canadian as a backup, a receiver? And you don't need the two Americans because both can't play. And R.J. Harris has been fine. He got a few balls tonight. He's not a liability by any stretch.
Yeah, but fine, and sorry to cut you off, but being fine elsewhere is going to get your quarterback killed.
Right.
Like, you cannot start anywhere else until...
That's right.
Like, there's two games where the two worst teams in the freaking league have destroyed your offensive line. I don't care how good R.J. Harris or Dominique Rhymes or anybody else is. I don't. Fix that first.
Right.
And to me...
And I think 6 sacks is enough of an indictment on what they're doing now. It's not working. When you give up 6 sacks, you got to fix it.
And 3 interceptions.
Right, which a couple maybe I would suggest were even
rushed,
caused by rushed throws because of pressure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and you said it perfectly. Like, Saskatchewan, they're a lot better on defense than BC and Montreal. And you know who's really good on defense too? Well, at least the front four. The Edmonton Eskimos. So, like, to me immediately, I am... There's a couple things that I am doing right here, right now. I am putting John Gott back in the lineup, and I am going to find anybody that can play on the right tackle, and there's got to be somebody out there, an American that has played football before, that you have on Nicholas, that you have on practice. Right? Go find somebody. That's your job.
Well, and now
you're done with the Canadian stuff.
Right.
It's over.
And now's the time.
Right.
With the NFL cuts having happened, and all of those players some of those players you have on your neg list that did get cut, and there were hundreds of them, and if not on your neg list, a guy you can put on and bring up, there's got to be 4 or 5 guys, right, that fit the bill. And, more and more you see it in the U.S., just so many of these tackles that are just so athletic, incredible feet for their size. And in this league, you need somebody that can protect the edge. And tell you what, Sir Vincent Rogers, I don't think he played particularly well tonight. I thought he got away with a couple of holds that they didn't call. But, they just need to find a way, because you're right, if you can't protect at the very baseline on your offense, nothing else you do is going to matter.
Plus, your quarterback is not mobile. Mm-hmm. So you're compounding the problem. And he might be one of, if not the best guy in the league when he has a pocket and when he has time. But he is showing, whether it's through injury or just not capable, that when that is not the case, he is nowhere near. He's not a guy like Bo Levi or Mike Riley making passes on the fly, adjusting, rolling out, doing these things. He can't do it right now. And I don't know if he can't do it ever or he can't do it now because he's injured, but I know he can't do it right now.
Yeah, and he got up 2 or 3 times at least, limping and trying to shake off a hit. And it's going to happen more and more, and teams are going to fully take advantage of it.
Stefan has waited a long time tonight. Stefan, how are you?
Gentlemen, how's it going?
At 1:55 in the morning, I'm feeling pretty good all of a sudden.
It's been a hard night.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's pretty much been said already, but I'm super curious to know what the offense did during that bye week. It wasn't good anyway.
No.
Whatever they did, let's hope they don't do it again.
No, they all went home, and look, this team, and before you get to your other points, this team has been dreadful in 5 years off the bye week. Dreadful. Mm-hmm. Like one of the worst teams in the league.
But this is overdoing it.
Right. And this is trying to actually outdo that, right?
Yeah,
you come off a bye week, and you get absolutely destroyed by the 2 worst teams in the league.
Yeah, and tonight I felt we had a golden opportunity with the BC center going down. What was that, like the first play from scrimmage? And
terrible injury to Cody Husband.
The replacement was not adequate, obviously, and we still couldn't. The defense tried to help the offense and tried to give them opportunities, but still we couldn't exploit that. That was super disappointing.
That's a really good point that we didn't really touch on too much, but they lost the center on the first snap of the game, and then the other kid, Greaves, really struggled. Travis Lulay didn't make it through the first half, and Jonathan Jennings has not been great. He was okay, but so you lose Lulay, you lose your starting center. Chris Rennie doesn't even play. Arsenault's out with an injury. I mean, you're right that there was a lot of factors that should have made this night a whole lot easier for Ottawa. They didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, it was going our way, and we just couldn't cash it in at all. And I also agree with the predictability of the offense. I'm no offensive guru, but I've been iffy on Elizondo since last year, and the best example tonight was the wide receiver screen that should have been a pick six.
Oh, if Ellingson didn't reach back at the last second, that was almost embarrassing, right? Because that guy knew what was happening before anybody else did.
Yeah, that play was so weird. I had to rewind immediately. I'm like, that didn't happen. Like, what's going on there?
Well, that's an example of what Keith was talking about earlier about film study in general, and that was a great example of somebody having watched film and seen that particular formation in that particular down and distance. And as soon as Ellingson stepped back, you could see, I think it was Anthony Orange, right?
Yeah, the guy who can't catch.
Thankfully, just attacked. He knew exactly what was coming.
Should have had 5 picks himself tonight. Orange.
No, he could have been in the huddle, and wouldn't have changed anything. You wouldn't have known more.
Yeah.
And I do agree also with that last comment you had about Harris not dealing well with pressure. I don't think it's all, like these past 2 weeks. Obviously, it's not his fault, and no one, like the second coming of Flutie, couldn't deal with this. But I've never felt that he was comfortable under pressure. He's definitely below average as far as dealing with pressure goes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Stefan. I think when you get an average guy with his mobility and then he gets hurt, where he did hurt his ankle and his knee in the preseason, when you give that to a guy before the season even starts and he's average at best in the mobile department, you better protect him awfully well.
and he's always seemed yippy as far as deciding when to run. You can tell he doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's always plan Z, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. I mean, there probably are opportunities when he could take off with the ball. And again, whether it's because of the injury or whether he simply does not want to expose himself. You think about Pipkin last week, how many times did he intentionally, right? I mean, maybe a little bit from inexperience, but he was very eager and ready to take off with the ball and act like a runner, and he got a bunch of first downs, moved the ball, moved the chains for Montreal. But Trevor Harris, like I said, either doesn't want to or simply can't.
And Lord knows it's a nice asset to have in the CFL.
Is it ever?
Yeah.
All right, Stefan, thanks so much for calling.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, appreciate it. We'll move on to Frank. Frank.
Yes, hi, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. I actually wasn't going to call. I was going to try to get to sleep, but then I got angry, so I had to call.
Oh, good. So you're like us. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I guess I'm sort of in agreement with a whole bunch of other people talking about the offensive line, and I guess the way Duke refers to it as the blueprint. I remember, I'm fairly old. I'm in my mid-50s, and I've been, and back when...
Are you on speakerphone, Frank?
Yeah, I was for a second, but I'm not anymore.
Okay,
anyway,
perfect.
So, and I remember the deal back in the day when... even as far back when Duke was playing, when you were allowed to have 10, when you had to have 10 Canadians starting instead of the 7 now, is that you picked your 10 best Canadians and you put them on the field regardless of position, and then you filled the rest in with Americans. And then all of a sudden, people have decided, that what they need to do, and it's like Marcel is stuck to this old blueprint where we're going, no, we're going to put like a bunch of Canadians on the offensive line because we can bury them there. And then we'll load up with Americans at the so-called skill positions. And what has happened, if you look at the trend in the league, is what everybody's done is they've loaded up their defense. And most defenses only have one Canadian starting, maybe a free safety, maybe an interior defensive lineman. And so Ottawa's got itself, I think because they're behind the trend, they've got themselves with like these 4. And they're all young and they're all inexperienced, going up against these four offensive linemen going up against these highly skilled, incredibly fast American defensive ends who are just like they're no match for them, and they just can't keep up. And because defenses are loading up, if you look now in the league, Calgary, the best team in the league, has figured this out, and they've got 3 Americans starting on the offensive line. BC has 2, Winnipeg has 2, Saskatchewan has 2. And Ottawa's still trying to know. We're going to put our 4 out there, even though they're only in their second year. And I forget his name. He's very good, Johnson, I guess it is. He's undersized. He weighs 270 pounds. He's undersized. But we're still going to put him out there. He's only got a year of experience, but we'll still put him out there. We'll start Mark Cordy out there, who's never played a game before in his life at this level.
He's in over his head right now, Mark Cordy.
Right. Yeah. And then, so it's like they're behind the trend, it seems. Because everybody else is sat there, and they're going and it seems to make sense because there, like you said, there are hundreds of them in the States looking to play, and so you should take your best 7, regardless of what position, and you can find Americans to fill in the gaps. But unfortunately, because they've always drafted an offensive lineman in the first round, they're behind in the skill positions with Canadian depth. And I think that's a problem because you're sitting there going, well, we don't have any really good Canadians in the skill positions right now because we haven't drafted any. We've only drafted offensive linemen, and the offensive linemen aren't ready to play. So now we're in trouble. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no,
it's a really
makes
good,
perfect sense.
It's a good call, Frank. I mean, I think there's always going to be good debate about whether or not the value of a Canadian offensive lineman maybe outstrips other positions. In other words, if you can get guys that can play at this level and you can get to 4 or 5 Canadians, it really does obviously help you elsewhere. But the bottom line is either they have to be ready quickly or you have to see improvement and feel like they can play.
Right.
And right now I think they've got, and part of it's confidence too, right? I mean, if you have a young kid, and let's take the Winnipeg game as an example, right? Those 4 kids started that game with Servi, and they had a great night, and they protected. I don't think Trevor got sacked at all. They played really well, but then last week they struggled, and this week they struggled, and now you got a confidence issue on top of technique and on top of just the straight fact. Can they play at this level? And if you've got 3 or 4 guys struggling with all of those things at the same time, it's a recipe for disaster.
Right, and then and I think the other thing is, regardless, with respect to John Gott, the man can't bend anymore. He was a great offensive lineman, but I think he's just I think Father Time has caught up with him. If you watch him, he's stiff-legged. He can't get, he just seems to be. It just seems like Father Time has caught up with him, and his body can't do it anymore. And that's why I think he's not playing.
I understand, Frank, a little bit, but I think when you're getting beat as badly as you are, I'd like to have a guy out there that cares. I understand that when they get run over, is pissed off about it. And these guys look like, you know what? I'm going to get up, and you're going to run me over the next play too. That's what they look like right now.
Yes.
You know, guys, John got dressed tonight. So I'm wondering why at some point, given what we saw, right. At the very least, you've already got him on the roster. It's not like so why not stick him in there at some point tonight? I'm surprised that now that I think of it, I'm surprised they didn't just make a change and whether to start the second half or whatever and just let him play. Get him, get him back into the swing of things for next week. It's odd that he didn't even get on the field.
Yeah, it is. Well, that would be odd because, like you said, it was embarrassing watching. And that man who commented on Jason Wilson-Sagan, Sean Lemon and Odell Willis made him look like he looked like he was standing still. They just were running past him like he wasn't even there. Yeah. It was hard to watch actually. And if you sit there, I have a friend who always texts me about how bad Trevor Harris is, but I sit there and I go, I wonder how good could you be standing in the pocket if you have no faith in what's in front of you?
Right.
How good could you be on your reads? How, you know what I mean? I don't think you have time. You might be late on a throw because you're too worried about you're looking at what's in front of you and not looking at your read instead.
Isn't that exactly what's happening with him right now? That the second he looks up, and if his first read's not there, he's like, I'm going to get killed.
Right. And I'm sure sometimes even if he makes the right read, he's throwing it late and maybe because he's looking at the offensive line first before he gets a chance to look at the secondary to see where he's supposed to throw the ball. I'm sure that's what's happening.
And if you guys noticed, very, very rarely tonight was he able. So a lot of times the pressure that comes from the edge, you can step up and avoid, but there was also so much coming from in the interior, he had nowhere to step. So it was no win situation. It was not Trevor Harris' fault.
All right, Frank, thanks for the phone call, and thanks for staying up with us.
Okay, have a good night.
All right.
That was a good call.
It was a great call. It's amazing with these late-night post-game shows. I love it. I'm into it, and I wasn't necessarily into it at midnight, trying to get up and watch, here they come in the third quarter. But people care a lot.
Those guys can't sleep. They're so upset. I love it.
No, but it's 2 a.m. Yeah. And we're talking about, which I think is great, because the casual fan will sit there and go, oh, look at Trevor Harris. Look at Trevor Harris. He stunk tonight. Mm-hmm. Well, he wasn't great, but again, you could have put in Doug Flutie tonight, and you're not winning. So his numbers don't look good, but there's real issues with this team. We'll try and get to more of them after we come back, Duke.
Okay.
26-14. The Ottawa Redblacks lose to the BC Lions and fall back to 6-5. I had a Freudian slip on the pregame show. I called the Redblacks 6-5 when they were actually 6-4, and that was before the game, Duke. You believe that?
You know what a Freudian slip is called officially? A parapraxis.
A parapraxis.
Parapraxis.
Can't even say it, Duke.
I almost didn't get it out.
Right. I can't even say it. But I had a parapraxis. I don't even know what that means other than a Freudian slip. Called them 6-5, but now they are 6-5, and they go into Saskatchewan, and the Rough Riders. We'll talk about that as the show goes along here. They play tomorrow, triple header here in the Canadian Football League. You're listening to the Ogilvy Super Postgame Show on TSN 1200.
The TSN 1200 Ogilvy Subaru Postgame Show continues.
26-14, the Ottawa Redblacks lose to the BC Lions.
What's the record now? Don't do a parapraxis on me here.
6-5, Duke.
Good man.
And the 5-5 Hamilton Tiger Cats are playing tomorrow in the triple header.
What do you think of Super Saturday, they're calling it?
I think it's ridiculous. Don't get me started.
I know what you're going to say. But which of those teams... Well, I guess Saskatchewan and Winnipeg could have played tonight. I was thinking about the rest between games. You can't ask... I know you wanted 2 games tonight.
Oh, heaven forbid we have a 7 o'clock Friday night game and a doubleheader on Friday Night Football in the Canadian Football League.
Right, but you couldn't have asked Edmonton, Hamilton, Calgary, Toronto to play on Friday after playing Monday. But you could have asked Winnipeg and Saskatchewan to play.
Oh, good.
So
instead of having a triple header.
Well, the triple header is kind of cool, especially because it's back to back to back, not the 3-hour break in between games or whatever.
No.
Come on, you'd love it if you're on the TSN panel on TV tomorrow. 9 straight hours.
But you're going head to head with college football. You got other things going on, and honestly, if you're a CFL fan, first of all, on the East Coast, are you even staying up? Like on the East Coast, if you don't live in Ottawa.
You mean tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and you think, okay, you know what? I'm not doing anything on Friday night. Going to sit down and watch some football. Oh, there's no game at 7. Oh, okay, I got to wait till 10. Who's playing? Ottawa, BC. In BC.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try
BC doesn't get to play any home games?
No, I'll try it at the first quarter again and see if you wrapped anybody up from 10 to 10:45 tonight. How many people do you think it lured in, Duke?
That was not a commercial. They won't be canning any of those and showing that as highlights.
You got that right. Don't see. You've got me started on this. So why do you need to play 3? Who is sitting down for 12 hours tomorrow to watch CFL football? Like on a Saturday during the day. Who is doing this?
So they should have played at 4, 7, and 10.
We'll take a break. We'll come back with our TSN 1200 player of the game. Yes, we will.
Abstaining.
No, can't do it. It's the James Duke Ellingson TSN 1200 player of the game. 26-14. They lose to BC. You're listening to the Ogilvy Subaru postgame show on TSN 1200.
The TSN 1200 Ogilvy Subaru postgame show continues. Here's our player of the game.
Been looking forward to this for an hour and 16 minutes since we started the postgame show. 26-14, the Ottawa Redblacks lose to the BC Lions. James Duke Ellingson, your TSN 1200 player of the game.
All right, since you won't let me abstain.
That's correct.
I'm going to ask for a little creative license from you.
Okay.
I would like to pick players of the game, and I would like them to be the 2 kickers, because I think I have a fair case here. Richie Leone, 52.5-yard average tonight, continues to be outstanding.
How many times did he punt tonight?
7.
7 times.
52.5-yard average.
Only seemed like 17.
I know. And Lewis Ward just continues the streak. 29 in a row.
Is
30,
now?
I think he's in the top 4.
Now it's the 4th longest streak in CFL history.
Right, about to take over from one of my former teammates, Paul McCallum, who had a 30 game or a 30 kick streak. So, Lewis Ward and Richie Leone are my players of the game, kickers of the game.
Can't argue.
Okay, thank you, because that's all I got.
All right, much left. I was asking you this, and look, we've talked a lot about the offensive line and the pressure that Ottawa has been unable to handle in the last 2 games. Part of it, and I know a couple of people have brought it up, I brought it up on the pregame show as well. I just went over on the break and asked you what this is. 82 yards, 11 yards, 29 26, 38, 18, 145, 74, 27, 34, and 30.
It's got something to do with William Powell.
It does not.
It doesn't? Because he had 82 yards tonight.
Did he?
I know what that is. I know exactly what that is. Those are the yardage per game totals of one Deontay Spencer.
They are. 82 yards in the opener and a touchdown against Saskatchewan when everyone was firing on all cylinders, 40-17. He had a big day. Everyone had a big day. The other game, Toronto, the game that they blew and got cocky, he had 145 yards and a touchdown. Guess where Deontay Spencer used to play?
Toronto.
Oh, that's correct. And the only other game that Deontay Spencer has gone over 38 yards other than the opener and the Toronto game was the game against Montreal the first time when they barely beat the worst team in the league. If you have a big play guy, like I know Brandon Banks, and he's been a lot better since June Jones came, and they've moved positions with him, and they've targeted him a lot more, and they've made him a more focal point of the offense in Hamilton. But Brandon Banks used to be the guy that would have 145 yards, and then he would have 11 the next game.
Mm-hmm.
But then the next game he'd have 100, and then the next game he'd have 20. And you're like, what is going on? Duke, 11, 29, 26, 38, 18, 27, 34, and 30. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games this year that Deontay Spencer has not had more than 38 yards receiving. 8.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Brandon Banks' totals, 880 yards, averaging 88 yards per game, which is pretty good. 5 touchdowns, and as you said, I think the last sort of 2-3 weeks, he's really become more of a focal point in that offense. So comes back to what we talked about earlier, and Keith mentioned it. You need to have a guy that can take the top off the defense, but you also need a guy that will make the big plays and be consistent. And we look across the league, and we talked about all the guys that are hurt around the league, but every team seems to have that one guy, the dangerous guy, but the guy that's productive. And Deontay Spencer has not been that guy this year. He hasn't done it he had the one return for the touchdown in that Toronto game. I think that was the only one all year. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't really done a whole lot in the return game either. You know, I mean, are they using him? Is he getting tired? Are they trying to do too much with him? Should they do one or the other? Are there some other options at the receiver position? So he's not a big guy either, right? Which he doesn't. He's just not going to win.
But Brandon Banks isn't a big guy.
No, I know. And that's the one outlier. But the other guys, I think, have the ability to win 50-50 balls. But bottom line is he's not producing. Whether it's of his own fault or doing or just being part of that erratic offense.
And I'm not trying to isolate him on an offense right now that is having massive problems as a unit. But my point is that Deontay Spencer is here to be the big play guy. He doesn't have to be Greg Ellingson and Brad Sinopoli and make 11 catches a game, but he's got to make a couple that scare the defense enough to be honest for him and to think that he can be a big play guy down the field. He is not even close to that. And as you mentioned earlier in the show, which I think is a good point, the second you know that there's pressure on the quarterback and that Deontay Spencer is not going to beat you deep one-on-one in the middle of the field, everyone comes in 10 yards.
Yep.
And guess what? The field shrinks and there's nowhere to throw the ball and your offense can't move it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, defensive backs, they watch film, they read route patterns, and I'll tell you what, when they know that the quarterback is only going to have time to make one look and he can't look off, they're going to jump. They're going to jump routes all night long because there's no threat. And if Trevor Harris tries to pump or tries to pull it down, most of the time he lands on his back.
So Ottawa's got a lot of problems to fix. The good news is they get 8 days to be able to do it. The bad news is the opponent and a couple of cross-country trips in between. It'll be an interesting week of practice. We'll talk about that and wrap things up when we come back. 26-14, the BC Lions beat the Ottawa Redblacks. You're listening to the Ogilvy Super Postgame Show on TSN 1200.
The TSN 1200 Ogilvy Subaru Postgame Show continues.
Duke, last week, people were angry after they lost 21-11 to Montreal. This week, I wouldn't say that it's nearly as much anger as it is concern, because it has now turned into it's not necessarily a one-game problem. It might be a much, much bigger problem, and it reared its ugly head tonight in the 26-14 loss to BC. Question is, you come back, you fly home tomorrow. That's
a long flight when you're tired and beat up and you lose and you have a headache. It's a long flight back. It's a whole day too, right? I mean, really, Saturday's gone.
Well, it is, right? Because even if they leave at 9 or 10 in the morning, say they leave at 10 in the morning, and what's a 5-hour flight back, and then
add 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you get back and it's 6 o'clock at night, and then, they'll be off Sunday, and then back to the practice field this week before you have to turn around and go back to Saskatchewan. It's a 9:30 Saturday night start in Saskatchewan next Saturday night, and Duke, it doesn't get any easier, that's for sure.
No, but you made an interesting point, and I mean, hey, every game in any sport, you think something's a lock, and you get surprised all the time in pro sports. But you brought the point up that Saskatchewan's going to play the back half of the Winnipeg, the Labor Day series, the Banjo Bowl tomorrow. That's a lot of emotion expended in 2 consecutive weeks.
Right.
Can they rally? Let's say whatever, win or lose. Are they going to be able to kind of ratchet that up again? Maybe they'll play down to their competition, and when they play Ottawa. But we'll see. I mean, on the surface, the mismatch in that game is going to be that Saskatchewan defense. If anybody watched them beat Calgary a couple of weeks ago, their defense was like wild animals, and they won the game on defense. They intercepted a pass for a touchdown. They beat up Bo Levi all night long, and if they can do that to Calgary, wow, it'll be a long, long night for the Ottawa Redblacks.
Right. But I do think that it's worth stating that they have those 2 games against Winnipeg, and then they're going to go back home. And it'll be tougher for them to get up for the Ottawa game than it will for most games for the Rough Riders.
Yeah. The only thing that counters that, I guess, is that if you look at the Western standings right now, all of a sudden Saskatchewan's very much in the picture to finish second. And it's tight in there. So they need to take advantage of.
And two is that when you get your butts handed to you, you do remember. And in week 2, which was Ottawa's week 1, Redblacks handed it to Saskatchewan.
Sure.
And guys, don't forget that.
Exactly. No, Chris Jones won't.
Yeah, it'll be, I think it'll be a really interesting week around here when it comes to Redblacks practice, because you just can't do the same thing as they've done the last 2 weeks. Like, something has got to give here. So what are you going to do to change things when things aren't going well?
Well, and you brought it up on the last break, and we won't get into it now or tonight, but it's an interesting conversation. The Ottawa Redblacks typically have been starting more Canadians than you need to, and the question would be a little bit, why are you doing that when you should have the ability to plug in some imports in some of those spots, and again, specifically at the right tackle position right now. And so it'll be interesting to see if they bring anybody in, what they do in those, with those positions, and again, addressing those extra American receivers when really, did Dominic Rhymes even play tonight on offense? I don't think so.
And maybe this team just needs a shakeup.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, maybe they just need that jolt through the locker room where something happens. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if you bring in a big play guy, if, somebody sits down. I don't know what it is, but it seems like emotionally they're stagnant right now. Mm-hmm. And something's going to have to get them to a different level. And maybe they can do that on their own, but right now it's not trending that way. So, again, I think it's going to be a very interesting week when it comes to them getting back on the practice field, and what are they going to do to fix it? And those will be the questions being asked this week at practice. It's been a long night. Thank you for staying up with us.
Me?
Oh. Well, not you, but you as well, yeah.
You have an enormous amount of energy, my friend. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I don't get up at 4:30 in the morning like you do. But thank you for everything. And we thank the listener for being with us. It's very late, and it always reminds us, no matter how angry or whatever we're feeling tonight, it's 2:30 in the morning, and people are feeling something about football here in the city. And I always think that still is a great thing. Not a great result tonight for the Ottawa Redblacks, 26-14. They lose to BC. James Absons had a heck of a night as well. with everything going back and forth in BC. So thank you very much, James. AJ Jakubec and Jeff Avery, Justin Phillips on the pregame show, Steve Bunda as well. So for James Duke Ellingson, I'm Lee Versage. Once again, the final score 26-14. Back in action next Saturday night as the Redblacks are in Saskatchewan at 9:30 to take on the Rough Riders. We'll talk to you then.
Ottawa Redblacks football on TSN 1200. Any reproduction in whole or in part without the express consent of TSN 1200 is strictly prohibited. This has been a live TSN 1200 presentation.